Saitama is the only person in the world who can treat Tatsumaki however he wants to, and right now, he plans to teach her a lesson. One Punch Man Chapter 178, titled Do It Outside, features Fubuki on the cover again, but this time seemingly without clothing. The Psychic Sisters are on pretty much every cover at this point. After we see the operating sign go from on to off, indicating that surgery is over, we see who was in that critical condition. It's Air, a hero who is thought to have died when he was shot in the neck by the remains of evil natural water, and he wakes up with a jolt in the hospital bed. As it turns out, he survived thanks to Pig God getting the Hero Association agents to rush him away. From the looks of it, he probably didn't think he'd survive either, immediately wondering, where am I? At least he's not alone. Next to him is another injured A-class hero, the headphone hero Forte. Forte lets Air know that they're in the hospital room and it's safe here. According to reports, the boomerang-using hero let his guard down and was taken out by a monster, which is somewhat accurate except that he was looking directly at evil natural water when the shot pierced through him. He just couldn't defend himself or react in time. On his side, Forte's entire right foot is bandaged and he has a band-aid next to his mouth. On his side of the room are some A-class heroes and a TV. Unlike Saitama, Air seems to recognize that Forte is a hero in his class. But Forte also doesn't hesitate to jump in with how he's a higher ranking hero and they should try to get along. Forte then admits that he's in no state to be bringing up rank, seeing as what also happened to him recently. More surprisingly is Forte's belief that Saitama used some kind of secret technique to pull off this injury on him, which we know is absolutely not the case. Air, having just woken up, can't really pay attention to what Forte is talking about since his own voice seems to sound different. Actually, he straight up thinks something is wrong with it. Some doctors take that moment to come into the room, looking more like mad scientists to be honest, explaining that the damage was extremely severe and his life was in critical condition. To help fix his throat and neck, they surgically augmented it with mechanics. And that's when they introduced themselves as specialists in cyborg medical science, brought in by the Hero Association. One of them points out that their skills are still nothing compared to Dr. Beaufoy, aka Metal Knights. As usual, Forte feels ignored and points it out crankily. But we can't deny that he's sometimes overlooked because he picks the wrong moment to bring things up, like when his own friends are in the middle of introducing themselves. Butterfly DX asks him what he's so mad about and to not take his anger out on others. But that good advice is completely ignored, ironically, because he starts shouting that he'll get his revenge on him as soon as he can leave the hospital. Yeah, Forte is convinced that Saitama is evil, even portraying him as some kind of sleazy mastermind. At the very least, he remembers Saitama's name, and that's more than some others have done. Not to mention he's right about Saitama not being a normal human being. What's worse is that Forte is convinced that Arcade Baldi had some terrifying abilities that have nothing to do with his actual monstrous power. From his perspective, Saitama went from being in front of him, then suddenly moved behind him and slammed into him, which led to Forte being in the hospital. Considering the impact, having an injury to his ankle and some whiplash is pretty reasonable though. And of course he points out that the pain feels like he was hit by a car, which he literally was. He instead believes that Saitama is an Esper or a sorcerer. But are there even any sorcerers in this universe? Well, either way, subscribing to the channel is always a magical experience. Looking halfway between annoyed and disappointed, Butterfly DX points out that Forte was hit by a car. And Chain and Toad jumps in to say, you should stop using headphones during fights. The dark background seems to reflect how discouraged they are with Forte's behavior, and it only gets worse in the next panel when their entire bodies are covered in darkness. Forte looks very small as he realizes his mistake, saying, for real? A car was coming behind me? Back then, Saitama had even tried to warn Forte, but he couldn't hear over his loud music. Feeling awkward, Forte tells his friends to forget what he said and how he thought Saitama was like Tatsumaki somehow. The image he has of her in his head is pretty warped though, seeing as Forte hit his head after the collision. With a sweat drop, he continues to say he thought Saitama had cheat-level psychic superpowers and used them to win. Butterfly DX insists that if Forte had faced Tatsumaki himself, he'd be dead right now. Finally changing topics, Forte brings up the shaking in the complex he felt earlier. His hero friends explain that it was monsters who escaped their containment and went on a rampage. And though it's true some did, the earthquake-esque feeling was caused primarily by Tatsumaki fighting Tsukuyomi members. Eventually, the two decide to leave, since Forte is not too badly injured. And if he's well enough to want revenge against Saitama, they don't really need to stay and watch over him. They'd rather go see if they can help out with the monsters instead. Chan and Toad tells Forte to get some rest before they go. And even knowing Saitama did nothing to hurt him directly, Forte still insists on doing image training to prepare for when he will face him again in the future. Meanwhile, back underground, where Tatsumaki is ready to destroy Fubuki's group since they failed to protect her from harm, Saitama is still holding her in a firm grip as everything shakes around him. There's no way he'd agree to her hurting lower level heroes to the point that they can't do their job anymore. So with him being involved, Tatsumaki's rage just gets worse as she tries to force herself from his grip. With a cold look, she says to him, "I'm telling you to let go. Are you deaf?" But Saitama has the same kind of uninterested look she does, just for the opposite reason. He wants to protect the people around them as the walls and ceiling crumble away. More frustrated than anything, he tells her to calm down. But as usual, she tells him to shut up and move away so she can do what she intends to, with Fubuki's safety in mind, of course. When that doesn't get the point across, she pushes him through the nearest wall, doing even more damage as they go. Fubuki and her gang can't do anything except move out of the way and try to avoid being hit by debris. Even while she presses Saitama into walls, breaking so much of the underground as she does, he still keeps a tight hold on her arm. If she needed any proof that he was a strong hero, this should help. But knowing Tatsumaki, it's never enough. Not with her overflowing confidence and refusal to ever give in. Saitama speaks through her Esper powers, mostly unaffected by them, realizing this is what she used to hurl Genos away in the past. But for him, it's no different than when he fought Fubuki that time she tried to recruit him and he refused. Like we mentioned, Tatsumaki is very confident in her abilities, so to be compared to her younger sister, who she feels is far below her in power, must really hit a nerve. Even Fubuki says that he shouldn't provoke Tatsumaki like that. But of course it is too late, and Fubuki knows her sister well. Tatsumaki's face contorts with rage, and she grinds through her teeth, "Let go of me." But when she expends a massive amount of psychic powers on Saitama's body directly, it's like sitting in a massage chair for him. But behind him, the damage is unbelievably bad, creating layer after layer of smashing walls that form a long tunnel through the hero complex. It even reaches all the way outside to where we can see the craters made by the war against the Monster Association in the past. Tatsumaki's shocked that he can take that much and not even seem harmed in the least. She starts to doubt herself, but more so wonders what makes him so strong. In a hilarious panel of Saitama's features duplicated from the effects of the psychic powers, he says, "My muscles are twitching on their own." But that's as much as the Esper can do to him. Even Fubuki can't believe what she's seeing, that someone, anyone really, is able to withstand her sister's monstrous psychic powers. Not only that, but it's her full power. Finally, after trying to get rid of him for so long, Tatsumaki realizes who Saitama is. It dawns on her that he's that Baldy who's a demon cyborg, apparently only knowing Genos by his hero name. Now that she remembers him though, she at least drops some of her previous animosity and switches to her default annoyed look. Tatsumaki demands to know why he's butting in and whether it is because he is also in the Fubuki group. That really annoys Saitama, who then calls for Fubuki with a louder than necessary voice, still upset, which startles her. He then tells her that he'll take care of Miss Stubborn so that she can take care of everyone else and evacuate in the meantime. Without any argument, Fubuki agrees. But the way that Saitama called for Fubuki sets her big sister off. It's clear from her expressions and the veins bulging in her head that she's not very happy with the implications. She even questions how he knows her sister if he's not one of her underlings. This makes Saitama pause for a moment, considering what he is to her. He admits that he's not really her friend, nor are they companions. Their relationship isn't even that mutual either, so he guesses they are simply acquaintances, nothing more. While he says this, he shocks all the people around, including Fubuki's group and the leader herself. She even seems hurt by that revelation, probably hoping that he'd seen her as someone of equal standing at least. But they're basically just one step above strangers. Not only does this make Tatsumaki care even less about his opinion, but she laughs at him for going this far if Fubuki isn't someone he's even close to. His response seems to amuse her as she smiles, albeit in a menacing way. Using even more power than before to try and shake her arm free, she announces she is going to test him, to see if he even deserves to be hanging all over Fubuki. The phrasing surprises both her little sister and Saitama, who takes it personally and as a major insult. From his perspective, which is mostly accurate, she's always been the one dragging him around and forcing him to get involved in stuff he doesn't want to. Even in this case, she went to his house personally and picked him up so he could help her protect psychos. Before he can finish explaining that, Tatsumaki causes more damage throughout the Hero Association complex. And really, at this point, is it even worth living there with all the intensity that the heroes are causing themselves? The walls and rooms start warping out of shape, with the Fubuki group members falling and trying not to be injured. Elsewhere, parts of the building collapsed, with Hero Association workers rushing away. Even the VIP residents can feel the trembling from where they are, blaming poor Metal Knight for the current situation. They all complain that the building is new and should have been sturdy enough to withstand anything. But clearly, Dr. Beaufoy didn't expect people like Saitama and Tatsumaki to be causing the problems. And it wouldn't make much of a difference if he did either way. At the information desk, Stinger panics because the elevators get involved is broken, while Lightning Genji notices that people are stuck underground due to that as well. In other words, they can't really do anything to help them. As Tatsumaki continues to warp the surrounding area in impossible ways, the Fubuki group slides around, falling through cracks, with Mountain 8 being the only one standing. Even in this disaster, Fubuki's members surround her, trying to protect her from everything falling and breaking away. Reminded of the destruction Tatsumaki caused when they fought Psychos in the past, Saitama confronts her for her disregard for people's property. He tells her straight, "You treat people's houses like rags." But all she does is laugh, probably at least a bit impressed that he's still handling her power. But enough is enough. Saitama grabs Tatsumaki's whole body like you would a child. There's no way anyone else has ever tried to even touch her or force her into their grip the way Saitama has. So this is all brand new to Tatsumaki and her godlike Esper abilities. Wanting to keep the damage to a minimum as much as he can at this point, Saitama leaps with her outside of the entire complex and into the air. At the same time, he tells her that if she's gonna do this, then do it outside. It's almost as if he's flying with how high and fast he's going, but it's really just his immense leg strength propelling him to these immeasurable heights. His goal is to get away from places where people can be put in danger. As Fubuki looks up at all the layers of holes that Saitama's made, it feels more like a black hole in space than a view from the basement of the complex. It just goes to show how insanely massive these buildings are, and how crazy powerful Saitama has to be to fly through them with a leap. All Fubuki can say as she looks up with awe is, "Saitama and Big Sis, it's begun." She makes it sound really ominous, as if their fight will destroy the planet. Not long after, blonde hair peeks out from above, asking if everyone is okay. It's Lightning Max along with Stinger, Blue Flame, Genji, and an unexpected bandana-wearing hero. It's unexpected because as far as we know, Grave 8 is a C-class hero. So unless the Hero Association called for backup outside of the A-class, he's been promoted by 2 ranks. In another part of the complex, a number of villains notice they can now leave. With the power cut off, the cells opening up, and walls falling everywhere, this is the best chance they'll get to escape. Even they just think it's an earthquake and not fights between heroes. The monsters include ones like the perverted tongue monster Tongue Stretcher from all the way back in Season 2, who turned himself in because of how much King intimidated him. He has 2 other monsters with him, Man-Eating Capybara and Beer Belly, but they're not as immediately familiar, nor do they seem like much of a threat. And considering that in the webcomic Fubuki killed Man-Eating Capybara, I don't think we need to worry much. Regardless, they make a break for it with all the damage to the structure, running through unknown hallways. Just as Tongue Stretcher finds a suitable door and pulls it open with his tongue, things go a bit wrong. Without having seen what's waiting for them inside, they try to intimidate whoever is there, shouting, "You human pieces of shit! How dare you lock us up inside such a place?" But what greets them is a room full of heroes who either live there or were called over to the hero complex. This includes heroes like Spring Mustachio, Magic Trick Man, Twin Tail, Smile Man, and even both of Forte's pals. These weak monsters stand no chance whatsoever. The dangerous glare they get from all the heroes really says it all, and they must know it from their frozen expression. So they immediately turn tail and run in the opposite direction, while they say, "Nothing going on here." So yeah, so much for the rampaging they said they do. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.